Hello, and welcome to today's story. In this episode, we'll delve into the life of Alton Glenn Miller, one of the most famous American big band leaders of the 1930s and 1940s, and the perplexing circumstances surrounding his disappearance in December 1944. This narrative is based on established historical accounts, war records, and expert analyses. However, as no definitive conclusion exists about what truly happened on that fateful flight, certain elements remain speculative and are presented only as unverified theories. Viewer discretion is advised if you're sensitive to discussions of wartime tragedies. Alton Glenn Miller was born on March 1, 1904, in Cleminda, Iowa. He was the son of Mattie Lou Cavender and Louis Elmer Miller, who moved the family often during his childhood. From an early age, Miller showed a strong interest in music, learning the mandolin and then switching to the trombone, which would become his signature instrument. After high school, Miller briefly attended the University of Colorado Boulder, though he dropped out to pursue a career in music. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, he played trombone with various dance bands, honing his craft and beginning to experiment with unique arrangements. By 1937-1938, Miller founded and refined his own big band, eventually securing a recording contract and a series of radio broadcasts. With hits like In the Mood, Moonlight Serenade, and Tuxedo Junction, the Glenn Miller Orchestra became one of the most popular and commercially successful big bands in the United States. Miller married Helen Berger in 1928. Friends described him as disciplined, perfectionistic, and deeply devoted both to his family and to perfecting the band's distinctive smooth sound. With the U.S. entry into World War II, Glenn Miller felt compelled to serve. In 1942, he joined the U.S. Army Air Force's precursor to the U.S. Air Force, aiming to modernize military band music and boost troop morale. He formed the Army Air Force's band, giving performances for American and Allied servicemen across the U.S. and eventually in England. Their jazz-inflected spirited tunes provided an upbeat backdrop for soldiers in a difficult time. Glenn Miller's band became enormously popular, broadcasting weekly radio shows and traveling to bases in Great Britain. The group's mission: to keep spirits high during the intense conflict. In late 1944, they planned a series of performances in newly liberated parts of Europe, including Paris, to celebrate the Allies' progress after D-Day. On December 15, 1944, Glenn Miller boarded a UC-6 for Norseman aircraft from RAF Twinwood Farm near Bedford, England, bound for Paris. The goal was to arrive ahead of the rest of the band to arrange their upcoming concerts. Accompanying him were pilot John R.S. Morgan and Lieutenant Colonel Norman Bessel. Weather conditions that day were reportedly poor cold, with low visibility and possible fog. The single-engine UC-64 Norseman took off in the early afternoon. No official flight plan was filed, partly due to wartime exigencies. Shortly after takeoff, the aircraft vanished over the English Channel, failing to reach its destination in Paris. When the plane did not arrive, the U.S. Army Air Forces initiated a search over the channel. However, the ongoing Battle of the Bulge and general wartime chaos limited the resources available. No wreckage or personal effects were located in the days that followed. The disappearance was attributed to the poor flying conditions and possibly mechanical issues. News of Glenn Miller's missing flight broke to the public just days later, sparking widespread sorrow among fans, servicemen, and loved ones. Miller's wife, Helen, and fellow band members waited anxiously for updates. But the war overshadowed extensive civilian-driven rescue efforts. The official viewpoint, long held by military and aviation historians, is that the plane likely crashed due to the treacherous weather. Small single-engine aircraft in 1944 lacked advanced navigation aids, making a safe flight over the chilly, foggy English Channel extremely hazardous. Dicing technology was limited, and icing of the wings could have been fatal. The pilot might have lost control, or suffered engine failure. Neither the aircraft nor bodies were recovered, consistent with many wartime incidents over the channel. Strong tides and immediate sinking in deep waters often meant no trace would remain. Records from the day contain no confirmed sightings of a downed plane in that sector, leaving the scenario of a quiet, solitary crash plausible. Declassified documents from the US military do not suggest foul play or sabotage. They reference poor weather conditions as a primary factor. The official stance remains that Glenn Miller died in a plane crash en route to Paris. One popular rumor emerged decades later, claiming a squadron of Allied bombers, returning from an aborted mission, jettisoned their bombs over the Channel, bombs that might have inadvertently hit Miller's aircraft. While possible in principle, evidence is circumstantial. Some testimonies from pilots mention dropping bombs in the Channel, but no direct link to the Norsemen has been proven. Another rumor speculated that Glenn Miller was involved in espionage or top-secret missions, leading to a covert disappearance. No credible archival data corroborate these scenarios, and most historians dismiss them as baseless. At times, unverified claims circulated that Miller survived a flight, but died later in Paris, or was discovered in an undisclosed hospital. These stories often rely on second-hand anecdotes and have never been validated by official records or eyewitnesses. A few less prominent conspiracy theories propose that Miller used the war environment to vanish deliberately and start anew. Friends and family strongly refute such notions, and no credible evidence suggests he wanted to abandon a flourishing career and family. Glenn Miller's arrangements and recordings remain beloved classics. Songs like In the Mood and American Patrol continue to define the big band swing era in popular culture. His influence can be traced in subsequent jazz and pop orchestrations, and many modern big bands pay homage to his timeless style. Numerous memorial concerts have been held in Miller's honor, and various museums dedicate exhibits to his life, including the Glenn Miller Birthplace Museum in Clarinda, Iowa. The U.S. military bands periodically perform commemorations, underscoring the profound role he played in morale building during World War II. Despite near universal acceptance that he perished in an accidental crash, the absence of definitive proof preserves an undercurrent of mystery. Glenn Miller's story symbolizes the heartbreak of wartime sacrifices, not only for soldiers on the ground, but also for cultural icons who used their talents to serve their country. Glenn Miller was more than a celebrated bandleader. He was a symbol of American spirit during a dark period of global conflict. His final flight into the foggy skies above the English Channel and the enduring absence of conclusive physical evidence leaves us with a poignant reminder that even the greatest talents can vanish amid the tumult of war. Thank you for watching and learning about Glenn Miller's life and mysterious disappearance. If you found this overview informative, please like, share, and subscribe. By keeping his memory alive, we honor both his musical genius and the countless individuals who risked and often lost their lives while striving to bring hope to the world in its darkest hours.